p.m. on the East Coast here in the United States, and our bumper is running. I certainly hope that you can see it. We are recording and we are allegedly streaming to various platforms out there. And we have Miss Marlene standing by in our green room, and it's time to start a countdown to Studio 20. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick, and behind me you will see a wonderful book cover. Let me move. Could I move out of the way? So you can, hidden in a list. And it, yeah. It's real pretty. You should, if you want to see the entire book cover, well, I suggest you buy the book. And I'll give you some reasons to do that. Or actually, I won't. I'll tell you who will. Somebody who knows more about the book than anybody on the planet is with us tonight. Oh, by the way, folks, if you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, we are so grateful that you have joined us, and we invite you to join the fellowship going on right now live at pjnet.tv. The chat room has people in it who want to be your friend. They want to follow you on Twitter, they want to friend you on Facebook, and they want to fellowship with you, and they are over there just hoping that you will show up and join us. But if not, enjoy the program where you're watching it now. Here is Marlene Houk, and Marlene joins us from the beautiful studios wherever she is located. It's in another time zone, I know that. So it's somewhere west of here, is all I know. Marlene, it is so good to have you. I really enjoyed working with you. Marlene has the only Mac or notebook in the world that has a decent microphone. I am really proud of that. Marlene, I don't know how we found you, or did we find you, or did you find us?
I think we had a mutual friend, and I was so excited about her being on your show, and I entered the conversation, and so I think I got an invite that way. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, Barbara is knocking it out of the park, finding new guests. We love first-time guests. We have regulars that come weekly. We have some that come monthly, but we love our what we call an ad hoc appearance. The only thing better, I think, than a first-time guest is a first-time guest that becomes a second and third and fourth. That's as good as it gets. Marlene, you are or have been an accountant by trade. Was that most of your professional life?
That was my first career. And I did homeschool for 16 years, so I consider that my second career, and now I'm writing, so that's my third career. But I still love the numbers. I call them my friends.
You can have them. You're well. I don't like doing accounting because I am a Christian, and sometimes my vocabulary tends to reflect the world. More. I break pencils in my teeth. Dealing with things. So I'm glad there's people like you that care about those things and treat it with love and compassion. But I could never do it. You're also involved in some learning groups of some kind we were talking about earlier. Tell us about your Zoom and meetings. You speak and you're on camera a lot, aren't you?
Well, I am currently, since I'm an accountant, I am a consultant with a software program called QuickBooks. So I teach at my local community colleges, a couple local community colleges, and have been doing that for about 10 or 15 years. And so one of them asked me if I would consider doing a Zoom class. So I have so enjoyed that. I love to teach. I feel like the Lord has gifted me with teaching, but that brings a great desire to learn. I'm also in some Facebook groups and in some guilds and conferences that help me to learn more about the area of writing. So it's interesting to learn the technology, and it's a wide world of learning, and I'm really enjoying it.
And you meet some of the nicest people.
Yes, I went to 4 virtual conferences last year because of COVID. So many of them were having them online, and it was like meeting a whole new set of Christian friends.
Hmm.
I just thoroughly enjoyed it and felt like there were God moments where I was really inspired. And I went to one physical writers conference, so had some comparison there. But I love meeting people no matter where they're at, and I enjoy meeting them on video conferencing and like this too.
At some point, a lot of people that we have here have attended conference after conference, and they're kind of conference junkies. You know what I mean? And I can remember my wife and I used to go on a cruise every year, and we kind of became junkies. It became kind of routine. The awe and the wonder, it was still there, but it was very. But you know what I like doing is finding that couple who had never been. You can always tell. You can see them. They got that deer in the headlight look, and taking those first time cruisers kind of under our wing, and it was very satisfying because now we could experience that fresh new. It gave us a way to enjoy it even more. I see the same kind of dynamic happening in writing conferences.
Yes, I've been going to one that's close to my home. This will be the 10th year, so I feel like I could take a lot of them under my wing, and I have done it on the Facebook group, just trying to kind of calm their fears and kind of mothering them a little bit, and just giving them practical information and a feeling of, that they can recognize what I've described when they get there, and it won't be quite so uh, intimidating.
Hmm. Well, even though I'm not a writer, I have been to a few Christian writers conferences as there to serve the people that go, and I've enjoyed working with them. But I get to go to the classes and tape, video them, and the work. I get to experience it just like they do, and I keep hearing these recurring themes. Okay, find your identity in Christ. As a writer. And which I can't really help you too much with that, but they keep saying platform and branding. And these are the two mysterious challenges out there that all writers have, whether you want to or not. You are going to deal with it, but you're involved with, I believe, Victoria Duerstock. Reveal some of the things you've learned, and why would it be a good idea to learn it rather than trial and error?
I think that platform building and branding is a little bit like that old TV show. It was called Monk, and he had the photographic memory, and he was just the brilliant detective that figured out who murdered whom. And so he said his gifts were a blessing and they were a curse. So I think platform building and branding can be very intimidating and frustrating
Hmm.
if you don't kind of tame the wildness of it. And I think that it can be such a blessing in the sense that you get to connect with people. You get to
Hmm.
connect with Christians that you identify with, you resonate with, they bless you and you bless them. You get to serve people that just in the path of writing, you get to serve people and to help them see life from God's viewpoint. And I enjoy the platform building for that reason, is that it's not about me, it's about pointing them to Jesus. And that's one of the things I found when I studied the women of the Bible, is that they are like signals that signal important events. And they're sort of like flags or billboards that you want to read because something is going to happen. So I enjoy platform building because it helps me to serve the Lord, and it helps me to meet my fellow Christians, as well as meet others that might not be believers yet. But because I think Christianity is so logical, it just, my left brain says it's so logical, and it's so much full of love that you just can't miss with presenting the gospel. And I think the Lord takes over and he speaks to their hearts and minds, and platform building and branding is a way to point others to the Lord.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about Christian writers is there's a sense of calling. You know, most people, most professions, most of us work at jobs we don't really like that much with people we don't really like that much. You know, people don't quit their job so much as they quit their boss or the people they work with. You know, Christian writing, it seems to me as an observer, is these people feel called to write. And that's good because they're enjoying it. The problem is they've got the inspiration or a manuscript or a story, and they are taking from the old adage, build it and they will come. So they've got this content and they think if I just get this published, the people are just going to gobble it up, and it's hard to bust that little bubble, isn't it?
Yes. Because I homeschooled for 16 years, I really thought I knew my grammar, and I guess maybe I did, but there's a big difference between knowing your grammar and knowing just that right word that will say what you want it to say and that will keep the focus on what you want it to stay on. It took me a while to realize that I was called. I guess I was like little Samuel in the Bible when the Lord called him 3 times, and he kept thinking it was Eli that had called him. It took me a while to realize that I believe that the Lord has gifted me with an ability to just serve other women and help them to find the women in the Bible that are just like them. But these women in the Bible are saying, I've been through this valley and I know the signs, and I can show you where the signs are and where you're at in that valley. So I'm enjoying it, and it gives me some confidence to know that the Lord has called me to write.
Did you just wake up one morning as Samuel did, and feel, or whether not an audible voice, but a clear voice saying you're going to write something and you're going to pursue this career path that is not accounting, or was it interaction with another person? Was it something that took place over a period of time? How long ago was this? Take us back to those moments where writing became the centerpiece in your life.
Thank you. I write physically because I'm a visual learner, and I learned also that the muscle memory when you write helps you to remember what you've written. So I took sermon notes. I took extensive notes in college and in high school. And so I always enjoyed the writing part of it. It really helped me to remember. And I also just loved learning. It was an alternative. It was an escape sometimes from negative experiences. And so I love to learn, and I think that's part of that gift of teaching. So I was doing a lot of learning, and thankfully I had a church when I was growing up that nurtured me. I'm very enthusiastic about a church that specifically tries to teach and train and nurture its members. So I had a very strong background in that, and I really didn't realize I did until I got older. So I got a background in learning and learning about just the basics about the Bible, and I really appreciated that. So about 10 years ago, I started thinking about the women in the Bible, and I thought, well, I'm a woman, and I want to know what God is telling me as a woman in the Bible. So I found this book by Herbert Lockyer. It's one of his series, the All series. And it was called All the Women of the Bible. So I started reading it, and he's a great storyteller. And so I thought, this is wonderful, but he had the women in alphabetical order instead of biblical
Mm-hmm.
order.
Mm-hmm.
So I started searching the internet, and at that time I couldn't find a list in biblical order. So I finally just made my own list, and that's how I got started. And then I started reading their stories, and I started understanding that they had patterns in them, like repetition or contrast, or even things that were missing. And so I started writing it down. And then after a while, I was like, well, I wonder what it would be like to explain this to other women. So I started having Bible studies in my home and started explaining some of the things that I had found in the Word of God. And it's been a wonderful trip. I didn't get there. I didn't feel the calling at first. I think I just kind of arrived at it one day after I listened to other Christian women writers that uh, were talking about how God had specifically called them to write. And I realized that God had called me to open doors of truth. That's kind of my logo, is an open door. And I want to teach them and invite them and encourage them to see life from God's viewpoint. Because when we see life from God's viewpoint, it kind of makes life a little bit more palatable. And I brought something along I wanted to show you. My church, when I was growing up, was nurtured by a team of seminary students from the Christian college. And they would drive 2 hours one way each weekend, and they would help our little baby church. And I was a budding teenager, and so they were they were so enthusiastic about their own seminary courses, and they would walk around with rings of Bible verses, rings with little cards on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for this little church that I belonged to, they would ask us to memorize Bible verses, but they really emphasized Bible chapters. So I memorized quite a few Bible chapters along with dozens and dozens and dozens of Bible verses. So I wanted to show you a little perfume bottle that I got for memorizing Isaiah 53. It has just a little drop or two of perfume still in it. And so this bottle is over 50 years old. And I really appreciated the way that they nurtured me in memorizing the Bible. That was part of my writing journey.
I wonder whatever happened to those seminary students after they left.
Well, one of them ended up being the pastor of the church.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually moved on, I think, after about 10 or 15 years. And I met him at a Bible conference at a Christian college where both he and I had attended. And I recognized him, and he is still pastoring a church in San Francisco, California. It's called Hamilton Square Baptist Church. And I just wanted to thank him for
There's a Baptist church in
training
San
me.
Francisco. I'm amazed. I'm glad. I really am. They need it. Hidden in a list. This book behind me. Oh, by the way, the subject in that picture, is her name Amber by any chance?
Well, she could very well be. Just give her red hair.
Because there's someone in our chat room, Amber Houk. Oh, Amber Houk.
That's my daughter.
I just have this epiphany that she might be related to you. So where do you get these subjects to do book covers? Is that something that is thrust upon you, or did you have any input in that?
Well, because this book is just a little short read and it's on Amazon, take you about 45 minutes to read it. And it's an introduction to the women of the Bible. It's just sort of like a little calling card. And so I self-published it, and I basically used Fiverr.com to create the cover. And if you would notice, she looks like she's at the edge of a stone wall, and the stone wall is actually Hebrew letters. And so I wanted to kind of give it a little feel of hidden in a list, but I wanted to give it a light, airy feel. And I wanted to give it a feel of this is a study of the Bible and not just something that is surface.
Yeah. Marlene, it sounds like you've become quite fascinated with women in the Bible, and you've studied it, and it's become a passion. What are some of the myths out there that have been dispelled or debunked about Christian women and Christianity and the church and all those things? What are some of the myths that have been shattered, perhaps, by your endeavors?
I think one thing that people tend to think is that the women were kind of like put at the bottom of the totem pole, denigrated, and of course that was true for a lot of nations. But I find that the Jews actually treated their women very well, in my opinion, and especially in the New Testament. I find that when Jesus was on earth, he treated the women with respect, and he treated them according to who they were. It wasn't just a one size answer fits all. There were answers for their specific situations. And it's amazing how he deals with them. For example, Mary Magdalene, she was always associated with the town where she came from, Magdala. She was called Mary Magdalene. But at that time in her life, she was possessed with 7 devils. And it seemed kind of like the label never left her. There goes that woman that lived in Magdala that had those demons. But when Jesus met her outside the empty tomb, and she was real confused and crying and upset, he didn't call her Mary Magdalene. He called her Mary. He dropped her label. And I just thought that was the sweetest thing, just by leaving out something. There's a definite pattern of missing things in the Bible, and they have the most wonderful messages behind them if you just think about it. So I think one of the things is, if you come to the Bible without any preconceived idea of the way that Jesus treated women, I think you'll find that he treated them with great respect, and I've always appreciated that. I also think that another myth that is debunked is the literalness of the Bible. The stories, they really happened. And I love science, especially neuroscience. And science is discovering all the time things that the Bible says, and it backs up the Bible. And I just appreciate that the more time I spend in the Word, the more truth that I recognize, and the more that I can discern whether something I hear is true or not.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're fascinated with science, because so am I. And there is this myth out there that science and religion in general are antithetical. Okay, they're at odds with one another. Well, the Bible, in my opinion, was not written as a scientific discipline book. Okay, it wasn't written for that purpose. But I absolutely affirm what you're saying is, now that science has progressed, it is doing more to validate the truth of the Bible than the other way around. And it grieves my spirit that so many of the educated idiots out there have that education has driven a wedge, it seems, between them and religion, and that's a terrible shame, because science validates. One of the people in our chat room, Ben Cooper, is quite the botanical and biological fanatic. Okay. And he has a book, All Nature Sings, and I've read his book, and I don't read many books, but the creation absolutely declares, if you were stupid and you didn't know anything about the Bible, you'd never read, all you got to do is look up into the night sky and realize that something happened. Something happened. It was not. There is order. When I see the fireflies, they're making a comeback. They kind of went away for a while. I thank God for fireflies. I used to catch those things and put them in a bottle. Hey,
I do
Mom.
too.
Yeah, and bring them home, much to my parents' dismay.
Uh, I love to read neuroscience, and it reminds me of the Bible stories. For example, in the story of Esther, when the Jews realized that they were going to be annihilated, they were going to be killed because wicked Haman had hated Mordecai, Esther's cousin, so much that he was going to not only kill Mordecai, but kill all the Jews. Well, the Hebrews freaked out. They were just crying and screaming and hollering, and their emotions, they were totally overwhelmed with fear and despair. And what happens in your brain when you are overcome with emotions, it have it works with the amygdala, which is part of the emotional center of your brain, and the amygdala has to do with your emotions. So when they were overcome with fear, their amygdala hijacked their frontal lobe, which is the part where you think. You think logically and clearly.
Cerebral cortex, right there.
Yes, the prefrontal cortex. And so what happened was their amygdala hijacked. I read that in the article. It was really interesting. Their amygdala hijacked their prefrontal cortex, and they could no longer think clearly. So when Esther told Mordecai, she said, "Go gather the Jews and fast for me." She was addressing that, and she was saying, hey, we need to get these Jews back to thinking, because I have a plan and I need them to work with me, not to just be laying in the street overcome with fear. So she told Mordecai to actually get them to do something physical. And so when she said, go and gather, any psychologist or counselor would tell you that if you're depressed or in grief, to get out and take a walk.
Do something.
Do something physical. And it really, yes, it
I
really
like
helps
cutting wood.
Yes. And she
axe.
told them to fast for her. They were so totally concentrating on themselves. And so when she told them to fast for her, she was helping them return to their thinking instead of being controlled by their emotions. So when I've been doing a little bit of research about that, and it just really reminded me of how biblical the things that I learn are. So for example, the Bible tells us to clap our hands and sing and praise the Lord. Well, when you're under stress, the receptors in the hippocampus are destroyed. So guess what restores them? And that is singing happy songs, which is what the Bible tells us to do. It's just so logical to me.
I don't sing, but I do play music. I didn't know you were interested in that. I had two majors, sociology and psychology, and I am fascinated by these concepts because, especially when you combine those two, because so much of our reactions to things are socially conditioned. But Zig Ziglar said something that I'll never forget, and it was about fear. And what you said, the basically it's fight or flight. Both of those require a physical response. Not curl up in the fetal position. Fight or flight. Both are rigorous physical activities. But Zig Ziglar said something about fear. I wanted to share it with you and anybody else who might be listening. We are born with only 3 fears. Fear of darkness. Fear of falling. Fear of a sudden loud noise. Therefore, if you accept that axiom, therefore all other fear is what? Well, learned. We have learned to be afraid. Now, by the way, that's not all bad. If I walk out that door and hear rattles and see a serpent, okay, that fear has utility, has survival value to me. Actually, survival for me, it will be death for the snake. But nonetheless, most of the fears that we have learned. And if we can learn them, we can unlearn them. We can recondition our minds to overcome fear. Because fight or flight, you're going to do one or the other. Well, you should. Fascinating, Marlene. I had no idea when you came on that you were a disciple of that intellectual rigor. But anyway, I am fascinated. Well, Marlene, we're out of time, and we went a little long today because we will not be having a guest that follows. But I'm glad we had a little extra time. Oh, I forgot. I have your website. I'll put this on the screen. I don't know where you concocted that name. MarleneHouk.com. There it is on the screen in case you have trouble spelling. .com or Marley. What's on that website? Is there any reason anybody should go there other than to find a link maybe to buy your book, or is there anything of value other than that?
I blog on that website, and you can sign up for my email newsletter. And my passion is to help others find viewpoints. Like you said, fear was learned. So to find viewpoints that will reduce their fear and the other emotions that are controlling their lives. So I blog there, and also have a list of the Bible women that are at the end of the book too.
I bet you do. Well, Marlene, I'm glad you have taken on that issue, because I've had there has been the water is less than clear. It's kind of cloudy because a lot of doctrine, and in fact false doctrines, have evolved out of some myths that were actually cultural phenomenon in biblical time, more so than doctrinal truth taught by Jesus. Jesus elevated women. Okay, he didn't put women down.
That's right.
And he said, Martha. You were talking about Mary Magdalene. Back then people didn't have last names, so it was Jesus of Nazareth. When even as late as the Spanish conquistadors, Ponce de Leon. Well, that means Ponce of Leon. I've been to Leon, by the way. But that's what they had for last names. It was their first. They only had a first name, so they were, Mark of pjnet.com. Oh, in closing, I wanted to offer and get your opinion, perhaps, on this. Many authors grapple, and I mean grapple, with branding and platform. And I have had more than my fair share of conversations with authors, but on branding, I think I've got it, but tell me. Branding is this. If someone who doesn't know you asks someone who does know you, that person, who is Marlene? The person that knows you says, well, Marlene is the lady that. What comes after the that is your brand. You have to be known for something. It's not necessarily a logo. It's not necessarily a color scheme. It's your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how close did I get on that?
I'm still learning, of course, but I think you hit it pretty close to the mark. I heard a workshop by a well-respected expert in the field the other day, and she said that your brand is yourself. So it ends up being, who are you, like you said. I would like to be known for a woman that loves the Lord and that has a passion for studying His Word and sharing what she's learned with others. And so branding is part of what do you want people to perceive you as. And then the platform is not necessarily so much for me, but it's just a way that I can serve the Lord by serving others.
Yeah, and that's not to say that. Yeah, and I produce propaganda for the kingdom. I'm a kingdom propagandist. Okay, so your reputation doesn't necessarily have to be an abstraction. Okay, but you need to have one. But you can associate an image with those thoughts, with those emotions, and that's what you can do with your logo. Your logo can be almost anything. Doesn't matter. It's a visual symbol that reminds people, oh yeah, that's Coach Prasick. Even nicknames like Coach are part of your brand. You could wear a hat, okay, consistently, and people would see that hat and say, "Oh yeah, that's the hat so and so who." You can use these physical elements, these images, to connect and associate with ideas, but ultimately your brand, in fact, is just your reputation, and you've got to work on it. It's not something you've got to focus. You can't. Oh yeah, he's a
Right.
great guy or great girl. Well, that don't cut it.
Right.
You
Right.
Jesus was
Right.
a great teacher. Well, yes, but that's not what he's known for. Uh,
But
anyway,
he didn't just do that one time. He
right.
kept
And he was a
reaching
great
out.
teacher. He was a great teacher, but that was not what he's known for. They didn't. Anyway, history did not change because he was a great teacher. Okay.
Right.
But he was a great teacher. Okay. Anyway, I digress. Marlene, I wish we could. It's fun. I enjoy doing this. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to share with you tonight, Marlene, and you've really
Yes.
blessed us. And I appreciate you, being a part of what we do here and sharing your story with us. And hopefully the day will come when you'll come back and tell us more when you've
Yeah.
written another book or something like that. But thanks for sharing with us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. God bless you and your work.
Thank you, Marlene. Okay, well, folks, there is the view from the side camera. We have many. We have like 7 cameras in here in the Eagle's Nest. That would be the broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv. That will wrap it up for me this week. Now, that does not mean we wrap up PJNet. PJNet is on the air Friday night, but I get the night off, and I'm grateful to the Hazards 4. Steve Hazards for taking the helm of the PJNet engine and captaining the boat, the ship. And here's how it works. Tomorrow night, about 9 o'clock, he'll come on. He'll be playing some oldies and retro and some jazz. And we kind of loosen up. We kind of let our hair down. And we all just have a good time in the chat room. But then at 10 p.m. Eastern, oh, and then people start showing up, man. Boom, 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 boom. And somebody's phone's ringing in my ear, and it's Marlene in the green room. See, I can still hear her. She doesn't know that. So what Steve does is it started out as a 10-minute program, and it became a 15, 20, 30. Now it's pretty much an hour, okay? But he will go over current events that occurred during the week past, and he will share them with us from a Christian and biblical point of view, as well as a political point of view. That is consistent with those principles that we cling to as Christians. And it has become quite popular. I am so happy that he is part of the PJNet family. And he's been with us since way back when. And between him and Barb, for a long time it was Steve, Barb, and Coach sitting here with nothing to do. Nothing to do. Okay. But they have hung in there. We have hung in there. And today, while we are still seeking additional territory, we nonetheless have grown into a wonderful family. Okay. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Boy, am I that far off? I'm getting a note. Barbara is our producer, associate producer, and she's reminding me that tomorrow is not Friday. And she's right. So anyway, I'll be back tomorrow night. In fact, I have a tutoring class tomorrow night, and if y'all are up late tonight, give me a call. We're getting really, really close and I am so happy. I am just beyond. I don't have words. So anyway, great being with you all tonight. Now listen, before I leave, we'll be back here tomorrow night. But would you contemplate 2 questions between now and then? They've changed my life, and I hope maybe they'll change yours, so I'll share them with you now. Here we go. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? I'll wait. No, you don't have to answer. Okay. The second question could be even more revealing. When was that? I think if you will contemplate those questions and the implications thereof, I hope you will come to the conclusion that none of us should be satisfied with either answer.